What is your commitment to addressing the cycle of poverty, and how would you strategize with residents and stakeholders to demonstrate your effort in its alleviation?
After you pay rent, there's hardly enough money left because you don't have a good job. That's what we need. Better jobs, good paying jobs, higher minimum wage. Number two, let's build 15,000 units of affordable housing so you don't have to wait 6 or 8 or 10 years to get into a unit. That would help. Number three, childcare. If you don't get affordable childcare, how are you going to be able to go to work? Then how you get out of that cycle of poverty. But most important is empowerment. Feeling that yes, you can make a difference. And often is friends and support and community and social service agency coming together and say, yes, we can support each other. We can do something with each other, for each other. That is what it would take to bring people out of a cycle of poverty.
Well, how about all the people in this community, in this area, Rexdale, Malvern, who don't have transit? So for me, when you talk about poverty, when you, no, Antonius, I'd like to give the answer I believe in, if that's okay. So with the greatest of respect to people who deserve answers, because that's what I'm here to give, you cannot talk about poverty without the root causes of it. That is transit deserts, where people take 2.5 hours to get to jobs that don't even pay them enough to support their children. Now,
people who are in poverty are either unemployed or they're underemployed. Now, there are some exceptions to that, people who are disabled and some people who are seniors who can't work anymore, but most of the people who are otherwise in poverty are people who are underemployed or unemployed. And it's one of the reasons why I talk so much about attracting more jobs to the city. And I think the other problem that happens then is access to employment if you're in the priority neighborhoods. And that can consist of access because of a lack of transit, but it can also be access because nowadays, if you know that there are stories, and they're not stories, they're true stories, about people applying for jobs, and when their postal code shows a certain neighborhood, that resume somehow makes its way to a file where it's never considered. And I think what we've got to start to do, and I want to bring IBM and RBC and Bell and Ford to the priority neighborhoods, because there's huge untapped potential in these neighborhoods. So if the people can't easily get to the jobs for a number of reasons, bring the job opportunities to the people. And when it's been done, it works.
What performance measures will you set as we would want to hold you accountable to those measures in the next election?
What a perfect question. I'll tell you why. Because if you don't set targets, then you can't measure it. Then you can't be accountable. So that's why I talk very specifically about 5,000 jobs and 36,000 kids getting good food. 36,000, how did you get that? It's actually from a report from a medical officer of health that said that if we pay this certain amount, we can feed 9,000 kids per year and systematically increase it by every year. So 4 years, if I'm in your mayor, 4 years a term, 4 times 9,000, that's how I got 36,000 kids. So setting targets, being accountable, means that you get real results.
I don't take any exception to the proposal that Ms. Chow puts forward at all with respect to taking advantage of community projects that we have going on to create jobs. But think about the numbers that she talked about. And yes, it's always nice to put a number out there that sounds big. It's 5,000 jobs for young people over 4 years. So divided by the 4 years, you get just over 1,000 jobs a year. And that is at a time when there are tens of thousands of young people, let alone other people, who are unemployed. That is why I spend so much time focusing on the need for the mayor to lead in the process of bringing employers who can create real, lasting, productive jobs out to these communities and to create more jobs in Toronto. And in my One Toronto Jobs program, I have specific ideas right at Keele and 401 to create jobs in the medical digital technology area, which are going to be for young people that are coming out of school.
I don't believe America can unilaterally create jobs. I don't believe that for 1 single second. You create the conditions that allow jobs to be made. So here's 3 quick conditions. 1, we have a one-size-fits-all approach to the community, to priority neighborhoods. Somebody from Jamaica who may come here and speak English perfectly is very different than somebody who may come from Somalia and doesn't speak a word of English. We cannot address poverty without looking at recognizing the credentials of people who come here from other countries that can't work, And I think that you cannot talk about poverty without making access to credit, which is so important to people who need to make a living. You have to open up the avenues for people to access credit.
Thank you, Aaron. Racism is an ongoing reality that hinders prosperity and harmony for all. The Jewish community is protected by law from anti-Semitism. However, to date, the black community is the most impacted by racism. Why the double standard? As mayor, what will you do to actively resolve and discourage racism towards all?
It starts for me with policing issues. When you treat young men and in communities throughout the city like they're potential criminals, to make them look over their shoulder when they're going to work, coming home, and we've learned the evidence that carding doesn't work. There's no statistical evidence.
So I, as a mayor, will be on the police service board and say no to racial profiling and ban carding. There is no place.
I think we have to really work at things like better representation in leadership. I think that, again, it's one of those things where we have to make sure that there is no excuse made. There are no excuses made for not having people of different communities, whether it's people of black skin, whether it's people who are Jewish or anything else that you could mention, in positions of leadership so that the people in the communities can see themselves and can actually know with confidence there is somebody like them, as it were, in positions of leadership at the Police Services Board, at City Hall, and elsewhere. They've talked about taking community surveys, which they presently don't do, but it's been approved to do it now. And I wonder, even though the Police Services Board has approved that, community surveys to ask you what you think of how the police are doing, when it will actually get done. I wouldn't be holding my breath, because these things seem to happen very slowly, and that's part of the problem.
We have a $1 billion police budget. $1 billion. Yes. In a city that has so many challenges, where if we would just invest a fraction of that money in the actual people who are being policed, we would have such a reduction. But if we put as much money into these communities and making them, by the way, Antonius, an actual priority, we would truly understand who's meant to serve and protect whom.
How do we help situations like Renee Dion or yourself, Ari Goldkind, to not repeat those kind of catastrophes? How do we hear from all of these people who have taken the courage to run?
I mean, look, it isn't feasible, really. We did it one time in 2003 when I was running before. We had a debate where it wasn't 60, but I'll bet 40 people showed up at the debate. But it's very difficult to do that. I mean, there is no easy answer to your question. I just don't know what else.
So you're committed to exploring?
Well, yes, and the media should spend more time. I mean, there should be more time taken in the media, especially now in the age of the internet, where you don't actually have to put paper and ink together, which has a cost. It's cheaper. Have the internet have much more coverage and profiles of the people who are running. You can't force them to do it, but we can encourage them to do it, and I would be happy to do it.
I think we can change the electoral system to something called ranked ballots. Not first past the post. Then no one would be called long shot, whatever shot it is, because every vote would count. You don't have to worry, if I want to make sure that person doesn't win, then maybe I need to hold my nose and do X, Y, and Z, and all of that kind of, you don't worry about that. You can vote for whoever you want, and then the person will drop off, and eventually you rank your ballot so that eventually the person who wins would get the majority of the vote.
Now politics has taken a if you can't beat them, join them approach, by not paying attention to all voters, but only concentrating on those voters who would vote for them only. This is an example of the absence of leadership. And just like poverty perpetuates a cycle of complacent leaderships, as mayor, what would you do to inspire, rejuvenate, hold accountable, or remove such leaders?
Welcome to case in point about what's going on tonight. I mean, I decided to run for office because I was fed up with the nonsense that I'm seeing at City Hall for the last 4 years. I'm a private citizen who just said to myself, I could do better than what's going on down there. It's a question of stale ideas, stale leadership. If your life is truly better today than it was 4 years ago, your commute is better, your transit's better, your income's higher, your quality of life is better, then you really, really should ignore me. But if it's not, I just ask people to do their homework, because when you talk about engagement, you can't engage unless you're willing to take the time to research and think about what your options truly are.
I grew up in St. James Town, and my parents struggled to make ends meet, and every penny counts. It was difficult in my growing up years, and that shaped my values all through my political career. Now, Mr. Ford and Mr. Tory has one view of the city. They will continue the damage of the past 4 years when too many people have been left behind, especially in priority neighborhoods. High youth unemployment, crowded buses. I'm not like the others. So as mayor, I will continue to act for a better, more fair, and more caring city right now.
Tonight is my swan song, as of now, on the debate stage. Because unfortunately, debates that were planned many, many months ago, before anybody knew my name, did not include me. And understandably so, based on the electoral situation at the time. However, the situation has changed dramatically since those early days. And I've since been recognized by many as a very viable candidate with new and fresh, inspiring ideas. However, debate rosters have not changed to reflect that new reality. While I'm determined, and I will fight this election to the end, rest assured, working even harder than I already am, this exclusion is a blow to my campaign, especially at the time where people are listening more and more to my ideas. What does this say about our democratic process when new voices, no matter how good they are, get shut out of the vital final stretch of the campaign just because they're new?
I'm not going to stand up here, and I didn't tonight, and make a lot of promises with big numbers paid for by money that the person making them has no idea where it's going to come from in many of the cases. Because I think that's wrong. That's old politics. I will tell you, I'm going to work hard and be a powerful voice to bring jobs to this city. And to bring jobs not just to the city from outside the city, but to convince people here and to create the environment in which they will create more jobs for people. Because that is going to make the biggest difference of all in addressing some of the challenges of the priority neighborhoods. I'm going to deal with the council and bring them together and end the years of division we've had in the city. It's going to take a city that's good, but it's not good enough. It's going to make it great. And I'm looking forward to having that responsibility with your support after the 27th of October. Thank you.